Ketu. Ketu in the first house. This is going to show a person who, in past lifetimes, has tried to define themselves through their personality, being a great person within the world, making things happen and doing it on their own. And in this lifetime, they have to look to Rahu, which means they have to learn to interact with others, to work well with others, and to trust other people, which is extremely hard for them. They typically don't like being around other people because they think others are judging them or, always analyzing them, which drives someone with Ketu in the first totally nuts. Ketu does give good focus. It does give a good focus on liberation. And Ketu almost always gives good skills in mathematics and engineering, and also working with chemicals, like chemical engineers, any kind of engineer, physicists. They might have a very strong, well-placed Ketu. Ketu negatively can make a person impatient, unsatisfied, unsettled, and again have difficulty working with others and everyone. They're always trying to do it for themselves, so they're a bit of a loner. Ketu in the second house. Now remember, from past lifetimes, this would show skills with the second house. That means they're going to be good with languages, good with speaking. They're going to like exotic foods, which is very much like Rahu. They might have a spiritually oriented family, come from a line of yogis maybe. They also are very good at taking care of their own resources. And so they'll always be frustrated about that because they will try to define themselves through it, so they need to look to help other people manage their own resources. So wherever Ketu is placed, remember, they're going to find frustration if they try to focus on it for themselves. Ketu is negative. It can cause speech impairments. It can cause eating irregularly or a difficult diet. It can cause difficulty with finances. I mean, they're not able to manage their finances very well. There's lots of quick turns of fortune, quick ups and downs that drive them crazy. Ketu in the third house. Third house is our ability to understand things with our own thought processes in mind, which shows again that in past lives the person's been able to think anything through and accomplish anything through trial and error. So this can make a person very skilled in multiple hobbies and have multiple interests, good at artistic expression. But what we need to see is they need to move beyond that. They need to focus on helping others develop their skills and hobbies. They need to focus on their belief systems, like figuring out what do they believe, what is beyond their mind, what is beyond their thoughts, what is beyond their own personal philosophy. When Ketu is unfavorable, the person will try to do too much, to achieve too much, and this will cause them to have mental imbalance, difficulties managing their hobbies and their work and their career and their life in general. It can also give difficulties with siblings, by the way, because the person will try to relate to their siblings too much, and then that always falls through and causes frustration. Ketu in the fourth house. These are the emotions. When Ketu's positive, the person is very emotionally adaptable. Their emotions are based on spiritual truths, and their mother or their home has a spiritual overtone to it, so they might learn a lot from their mother, spiritually speaking. Ketu in the fourth being negative, there might be over-attachment to the mother, one way or the other. The mother might be great, and they try to cling on too much, or the mother might be terrible, and they're trying to please the mother all the time. Either way, it causes the same problem, the frustration and difficulty. Negatively can give strange problems with one's cars or vehicles, which need to be diagnosed, but it's always hard to diagnose with Ketu in the fourth house. The fourth house can represent education, so this can give broken education or difficulty within education. And this isn't college education, this is more, say, pre-college education, so middle school, grade school, high school, those sorts of things. Ketu in the fourth can also give heartbeat problems, like heart irregularities, which can make a person seem nervous, or that they're easily stimulated by things around them, which causes this heart palpitation. Ketu in the fifth. Ketu in the fifth, this is going to be someone who really identifies with their children, but their children are always going to leave them lacking, meaning that they had great children, they identified strongly with their children in past lifetimes, and they're going to try to do that again, but their children are always going to let them down, or their children are always not going to like what they do, so there will always be this distance between children. However, the 5th house does represent scriptural knowledge and spiritual practices, so it shows good skills in past lifetimes with spiritual practices and spiritual knowledge, and that will be carried over into this lifetime. Ketu in the 5th deals with romantic love. If it's positive, the person will have all kinds of fun, ecstatic romantic love. If it's negative, they'll probably get involved in affairs, or they'll get involved in dishonest relationships that always leaves them wanting. And as previously with Rahu in the 5th, this can give difficulty with taxes or speculative investments. The person not able to make those things come to fruition. Ketu in the 6th. This is another situation where the person has hard to diagnose diseases. However, when Ketu is positively placed, they're able to win battles. They're able to defeat their enemies in very subtle and ingenious ways. They're able to overcome problems in subtle and ingenious ways. They might be extremely intuitive, and they might benefit from spiritual healing, such as yagyas or energy healing. Ketu is negative. This causes mental instability. It can also cause instability within the digestive system, too much toxicity, too much heat within the digestive system. And again, diseases being difficult to diagnose because they're primarily of a psychic or spiritual origin. All right? So psychic and spiritual treatments work well. Ketu in the 7th house. All right. Ketu in the 7th house can go a couple different ways. When the Lord of Ketu is well placed, then this can give a spiritual partner. This can make a person get in relationships very quickly and very easily, and can really pull them into relationships early in life. So it can give an early marriage, believe it or not. Why? Because the person has the past life skills, the past life capacity to already do that, and that's why it's easy for them. However, if they try to define themselves through it, they won't experience it. They won't experience satisfaction, I mean. So the person has to be in relationships, but keep distance and be their own person, be their own individual. When Ketu's in the 7th, the person will often try to build something with others. They'll be obsessed with, they need to be just in this partnership, or they need to find that right business partner, or they need to be in that right group to make things happen. So that gets in the way of a person being successful, because again, the person needs to stand on their own, not be caught up in defining themselves through others. Let's see. Ketu in the 7th can give inconsistent libido or vitality. So the person might be on it, they can go to the gym, they can work out, they can be sexually active and really into it, but then it'll taper off. For a little while they won't be into it at all. And so it's always this up and down with libido and vitality and sexuality and physicality. Ketu in the 8th, that's a great position. When it's positive, this gives really powerful capacity to understand deep knowledge, to understand esoteric knowledge and the occult. It gives the person the capacity to intuitively uncover hidden things, like people with psychic powers can have Ketu in the 8th house. Also, the 8th house is getting money from others, other people's money. So when Ketu's good, money just flows to them from other people. It's just given to them. So people who are interested in grant writing or working in foundational work or just living off others in general, Ketu in the 8th can be good. Negatively, this can give a very sensitive psychological state. So the person can be very erratic. Again, it can contribute to emotional sensitivity, psychological aberrations and things, because the person always feels like they're being attacked or they're a victim, and it's of a psychic nature. So psychically speaking, they might see things that aren't there or perceive things that aren't there. Again, because Ketu is sort of creating this veil between realities to not be there. So maybe in another dimension that makes sense, but in the current world it's not there. So when Ketu is negatively placed in the 8th, the person really needs to be grounded, and they really need to stay away from psychic things or expanding their consciousness. They need to direct their awareness inward and strengthen their inward self first. Ketu in the 9th. The 9th being higher philosophy and culture. This gives an adaptable perspective, meaning that they can go into any culture and fit in because they're adaptable and they're expansive and they understand the way things go in other places. When Ketu is not well placed, the person can be very shut off to other cultures, be very fanatical about their own culture. The person will have the capacity to explore many different techniques, spiritually speaking, philosophies. They might be very interested in the world religions. Ketu in the 9th negatively can give separation from the father. It can give an obsession with trying to please the father, or a connection to the father that's unhealthy. When Ketu is negative, it can give difficulty with one's guru, difficulty finding happiness through a religion, difficulty finding happiness through a philosophy. And higher education can be a problem for them, meaning like they have breaks in their education, or they don't even go to college when they should. And I don't always think everyone should, but if Ketu's there, it can show these breaks within our education, which cause us to suffer and not to move forward with our dharma or our path or our purpose, which is what the ninth house represents. Ketu in the 10th. Ketu in the 10th positively, as I mentioned, can give careers and things with mathematics, with astrology, astrophysics, really deep, insightful careers in engineering, these types of things where you see someone who just has a mind that can really delve deep into the mysteries of the universe, even quantum mechanics. That's when Ketu is good. The person has the capacity to understand higher spiritual states and how it relates to physical realities. When Ketu is bad, this always bothers me when I see Ketu in the 10th house and it's bad, because I know that I'm going to try to talk to this person about their career and about their path, and they're always going to have a sense of confusion about it, or they're going to have a sense of they don't know what they should be doing, and even when you tell them what would be good, or they even tell you what they're good at, you repeat that back to them, and they say, I just don't understand, that just doesn't make any sense. So when Ketu's in the 10th, it can be really hard to reach someone in regards to career advice, and they will usually make a lot of changes within their career, and they'll never feel satisfied with their career. And again, that's important, because they're not supposed to. They're supposed to just simply figure out their duty, do it, not worry about whether it's going to please them or make them happy, and then look to Rahu, which is now in the 4th house, because they're always opposite each other, which is developing inner contentment and emotional stability within the home, right? So we see that when Ketu's in the 10th, the person's not meant to overly focus on career for happiness, which they'll want to. They'll want to really find something to attach to career-wise that defines themselves. What they're meant to do is just do their work, keep it simple, and then focus on developing their inner emotional contentment, which is because Rahu would be in the 4th house when Ketu's in the 10th. Ketu negatively can give really a lot of power struggles with authority figures, which is another reason why they have difficulty with work and working for someone else, because there will always be this power struggle that they think they know what's best. And they might have in the past 3 lifetimes, but in this lifetime that's not their goal. Ketu in the 11th. So in the 11th, again, opportunities, growth, titles, one's own personal goals. Ketu is powerful here, as we've seen previously from Brihat Parashara. When Ketu's in the 11th, especially with the 4th Lord, they're able to get gains, they're able to get wealth. And they're able to get wealth by taking advantage of opportunities, dealing with chaotic situations, reorganization, and money and success comes in bursts suddenly to them. Since Ketu being in the 11th, that is the 5th from the 7th, that can give children as a surprise. I mean, the person's not planning on having children, and then all of a sudden, wow, there they are. So it can give children as a surprise. Now, negatively, this can give problems with older siblings. It can give problems with people who are, like well-known people or very influential people. So if Ketu's in the 11th and it's negative, the person has problems with influential people. Cash flow can be up and down, but more down than up. Money will be made and hidden in mysterious ways. So this is another situation where if Ketu's in the 11th and it's negative, the person probably makes money in untruthful ways. And if it's really negative and under some bad, with some bad planets and bad dignity, then this is more likely that a person will get caught making money in bad ways. So Ketu in the 12th. Ketu likes it in the 12th because the 12th is the house of liberation. So if we have Ketu in the 12th, the person has a very powerful capacity to attain enlightenment. They're very good at being in seclusion. They're very good at contemplation, at contemplating the grander mysteries of the world and of life. Doesn't mean they can always communicate them well, but they have the capacity to understand them for themselves. Dreams, and they might get information from dreams or be psychically intuitive in dreams. This typically drives a person to go on pilgrimages and have mystical experiences on those pilgrimages. When Ketu is negative in the 12th, a person generates debt in an erratic way. This can be someone who goes into debt with like credit cards, just buying random things. They'll have a tendency to want to live off others. they'll be inconsistent in their spiritual practices. And they will look holy, so they will seem like holy people or religious or spiritual people, but really they're hypocritical. Yeah. So when Ketu's in the 12th, they can be very hypocritical, spiritually speaking. They say one thing, but then the more you get to know them, you find out that either they're crazy, or they don't know what they're talking about, or the realizations they have just aren't grounded in reality or logic, or they don't make any sense, or they're just not even authentic. They're more disturbed and disturbing. They're trying to prove that they're spiritual when Ketu's in the 12th. I know it's late, but I'm thinking we might have some questions.